Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of NL Recess. This is where you subscribers get to hang out with the Newslaundry team and also our special guest. Today we have with us TM Krishna, who's a singer, a writer, an activist. There are many ways to describe him, but I'll let him do that himself. So once upon a time, you were I think your identity as defined by the media and the public was Carnatic singer or vocalist. But now over the years, you've become writer, activist. So you're defined as an activist artist right now. So when did that transition really happen, do you think?
I think things started changing gradually, only around 2002, 2003, and more. That was an internal process, not in public view. But I think at that point, there were questions about why am I singing this music and where does it come from? So I think it was a long journey for almost about 5-6 years when I was trying to figure my own space within the music and within what I was doing, which slowly led to me taking action as a musician in the way I sang my music initially, in what I considered was performance music.
What would you think is the future of Carnatic music? Say in an idealistic sort of progressive society, is there a future? How different would it look from what we are now? In what way could it perhaps adapt?
I think it can change in a lot of ways, not just Carnatic music. It can be Hindustani music, Khayal music. It's all the same boat, ultimately. I am not as worried about the numbers game, because I don't think every art form is going to get 1 million people. That's not going to happen. But I think I'm more interested in the diversity of, even if it's 100 people. What's the diversity of the 100 people there? That's what I think drives me to actually ask these questions. It's interesting to see how do you make it more diverse. So I think it needs to change. I believe there are 3 things that always need to be subverted in some way for culture to change.
So you were at the top in the Carnatic world when you also started speaking out about it. But I would say actually the majority of Carnatic singers right now would choose to be what they would call apolitical. So they'd rather focus on the music, even though I do think all music, all art is political. But there's a very specific line that people try and draw. So do you feel that world itself is open to change?
There are 2 parts to it. First of all, I think everything is political. I don't think there's any music or any art or any human being who's not political. Being apolitical or pronouncing an apolitical position is a political position.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. So I think the ones who say that are basically saying, I'm very comfortable where I am, just let me be.
Yeah.
Is what they're saying. And that comes from the cushiness of cultural privilege, fundamentally. I don't see it changing in my generation of people. I think either they are being drawn to a far more parochial thought process, or they're using the stance that you rightly pointed out, saying, I want nothing to do with it. Or as they say in Tamil, that's the classic statement that is said.
Yeah.
That is why get into all that mess, basically, right? Or why dirty my hands? We are also having a lovely resurgence of Dalit cultural art forms that are also contesting this whole notion of privilege, cultural and aesthetic privilege. We forget there is something called aesthetic privilege, and that's what runs our entire homes across this country. I call it the Fabindia culture. The problem with that is that if the people with power are not speaking, then what happens to those artists who don't have the power who speak? Who cares about them? Which is why I tell people, if you're worried that I'm getting attacked, don't be worried. Because if something happens to me, everybody will tomorrow talk about it.
Yeah.
I will have somebody going to the court for me. I'll have people coming backing me across this country with one tweet.
So looking back now, knowing what you know, if you had to go back to your younger self, what would you do differently, or what would you advise yourself on how to do this?
Oh my God, that's very, very difficult to answer. I really don't know.
Mufat khoro, muft mein itna hi milega. To watch the full unedited interview, you have to subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. Because when the public pays, the public is served. We depend on you and not on advertisers. So go to www.newslaundry.com/subscription and subscribe and get all our unedited interviews, our special video shows, comics, and everything that's behind the paywall. Remember, to subscribe to Newslaundry, you pay just about 10 rupees a day. That's less than, a cigarette. And smoking is injurious to health. So subscribe and watch the full interview.
Do you have any specific moments when you decide I am not going to do anything, and what are your thoughts on how to navigate this struggle?
Why are there no artists or acts that have been coming out from the Carnatic space?
Caste privileged society always kept traditional folk music away from getting due recognition. What do you think to bring that to the mainstream?
Yes, I think it can happen. I have tried many things in terms of space, content, and curation, etc. But I think much more can be done, and I think the coming generation will probably have less baggage than I have, than even I have, and maybe come up with better ideas. And I already see very interesting experimentations happening. People are taking videos and putting it up online, or you're making it prettier looking, or having better production value. That's not the answer. I think there needs to be a reimagination of what this art form is in the digital space. I mean, raga has never been the same forever. That's, I think, the biggest misnomer that we have been propagating as so-called classical musicians across the world. That's just complete lie. Ragas have always changed. They've changed in the last 100 years. If I have to go back to what I would listen, it would be, well, I grew up at the time of Genesis. That was my school music. And the Doors. So that's what I'll go back to.
We, being an independent platform, depend on our readers, viewers and listeners. Support independent media by subscribing to News Laundry. Go to newslaundry.com, click on the subscribe button at the top and pay to keep news free.